Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with Nancy Drew, The Haunted Carousel. Chapter 6, A Spooky Search. It almost seemed as if the crook could feel the intense stares Nancy and Bess were aiming at him. Malone's gaze swept back and forth. He was evidently keeping a sharp lookout for the park policemen and likely victims whose pockets he might pick. As he glanced to the two girls, his eyes lingered on Nancy Drew. A startled, angry look came over the man's face. It was obvious that he had just recognized the teenage sleuth who had caused him and his partner so much trouble yesterday afternoon. Next instant, he took to his heels. Nancy went after him on the run. Her friend followed close behind. "Oh dear, what will happen if we catch up with him?" Bess worried aloud. "Let's hope we sight Officer Doyle or that detective from St. Louis," Nancy shot back. "We'll try to draw their attention. What if we don't?" "We'll think of something." Bess moaned anxiously. "Please remember what they told you about the two crooks, Nancy. They're dangerous." From the way Bess was panting, Nancy could tell that her plump friend was getting winded. By now she could see that Fingers Malone was heading out the haunted house. Out of the corner of her eye, Nancy glimpsed a girl waving at her from a distance, but she was too intent on watching Fingers to find out who the girl was or what she wanted. Evidently, the crook had purchased a roll of general tickets on sale at the park entrance, good for all rides and concessions. Instead of lining out to pay his admission, he simply tore off the required numbers, shoved them at the ticket taker, and darted past him in the haunted house. Nancy hastily debated the best course of action, then blurted at Bess, "Please keep watch outside the exits. If you see a policeman, signal him. If Fingers come out, keep him out of sight." "Okay, but what about you?" "I'm not sure of myself. I'll just have to play it by ear, I guess." Nancy fretted at the delay, but rather than cause any resentment or disturbance, she waited in line to pay her admission. Then she identified herself to the ticket taker and said, "A wanted criminal just went to the house a few minutes ago. Please find a policeman and tell him I've spotted Fingers Malone. I'll try to locate him inside." The ticket taker nodded intensely. "Sure thing. You watch yourself now, Miss Drew." Nancy hurried on to the haunted house. Its interior was gloomy and ill-lit. Spiderwebs festooned the ceiling and corners, and weird, evil-looking portraits hung on the damp-stained walls. Mournful organ music drifted down from somewhere on the upper floors. The excited voices and jittery laughter of other visitors who entered the house just before it could be heard from the adjoining rooms. Nancy wondered which way to turn. Had she been foolish to follow Fingers Malone into the haunted house? But no, she decided firmly. It was essential to find him and keep him under surveillance until the police could arrive to arrest him. A curving staircase led to the second floor. She could glimpse white, ghostly shapes flittering through the darkness above the landing. A beady-eyed rat perched on one of the steps seemed to be watching her intently. Nancy assumed the repulsive little creature was stuffed, but preferred not to check. Anyhow, she felt it was unlikely that Malone would go upstairs, where he might be more easily trapped and have fewer possible escape routes. Instead, she returned off into a corridor on her right. At the end, it was a closed doorway. Someone began thumping on the door from the other side, shouting, "Let me out! Let me out!" Nancy's heart beat faster. Was this another haunted trick, or was it possible that Malone had robbed someone after entering and locked up his victim? Taking a deep breath, Nancy reached out to unlock the door, then jumped back with a start at a gripping skeleton and popped out at her with a blood-curdling scream. As her foot touched the moth-eaten carpet behind her, the floor seemed to give way under her weight. The next thing Nancy knew, she was plunging down a chute into utter darkness. She landed on what felt like a swarming mass of small furry objects. With a little cry of fright, Nancy scrambled away from them. A faint moaning voice, accompanied by the sound of a clanking train, reached her ears. Nancy groped her way to it. As her eyes became more used to the darkness, she saw that she was in a dusty, cobweb cellar. Ghoulish figures with glowing eyes would be glimpsed lurking fervently behind huge wine casks amid the broken furniture and other discarded trash that littered the area. Shudderingly black bat wings fluttered past, mostly overhead, but now and then one brushed her face. Nancy gulped hard, but did her best not to let her nerves get away from her. After all, it's just carnival trickery, she kept reminding herself. The moaning voice and clanking sounded louder now. On her left, Nancy saw a faint glow of light. As she moved toward it, a wizened, sharp-featured face suddenly came into view. It was that of Fingers Malone. Nancy gasped with excitement, and almost in that same instant, Malone turned and fled. Picked up the first makeshift weapon she could lay a hand on, which happened to be a broken chair leg. Nancy ventured cautiously in pursuit. The stone walls of the cellar seemed to merge together at this point to form a winding, upward-sloping tunnel. As Nancy entered it, she thought she could hear faint footsteps in the distance. Rounding a corner, she caught a fleeting glimpse of Fingers Malone darting up the flight of stone steps at the end of the tunnel. Nancy quickened her pace. Just then came a deafening sound. It was only an artificial thunderclap that was part of the haunted house sound tape. Nancy assumed when her heart sank back into place from out of her throat again. But for all that, the unexpected kaboom had left her pulse racing. An eerie wind and splatter of a storm added to this spooky ambience. Clutching the broken leg chair leg tighter for security, Nancy began tiptoeing up the stone steps. At the top was an open doorway through which the glow of light was coming. Nancy plunged through the opening at a rush to dodge any sneak attack by Fingers Malone, but she failed to move fast enough. As she dashed through the doorway, a lightning blow caught Nancy on the back of her head, and darkness engulfed her. When she finally came to, she seemed to be lying on a cold, black horsehair sofa, and faces were hovering over her. Gradually, she realized that she was in front of the parlor of the haunted house. Now the room was brightly illuminated, and the faces bending over her were those of Officer Doyle, the St. Louis detective, and the park nurse. Just lie quietly for a while, and the nurse says, "How do you feel?" "I'm all right. No, thank you," Nancy said, and rose slowly to a sitting position. She winced slightly and fingered a sore spot on her scalp. "Can you remember what happened?" "Yeah, someone hit me on the back of the head." Nancy halfway expected to feel a goose egg there, but her thick, wavy red gold hair had evidently helped to protect her from injury. Turning to the two policemen, she added, "I saw Fingers Malone, but he hid behind a door and took me by surprise." "Are you sure?" asked Officer Doyle. From his doubtful expression and a similar look on the face of Detective Norris, Nancy saw that they were not convinced. "Well, of course I'm sure," she retorted. "I certainly saw him well enough yesterday to know what he looks like." "Why?" "Because we ordered both the entrance and exit doors locked as soon as we got here," Doyle replied, "and then we checked every person who was inside, one by one." "Fingers Malone wasn't among them," Norris added. "And he's not in the house either. We searched the place before he came to." "But I saw him," Nancy insisted. She told the two officers exactly what happened inside the haunted house, and ended, "If you didn't see Malone, then he must have gotten away before you arrived." Officer Doyle frowned. "That doesn't seem too likely, Nancy. He wouldn't have had time." She pondered for a moment and then brightened. "Wait, I know how we can find out for sure." "How?" "My friend Bess was waiting for outside the exit. I told her to keep watch for Malone and follow him if he came out." Doyle glanced at his colleague, who shrugged. "Well, it's worth a shot. Let's go and see what she says." Nancy's blonde friend was still standing outside the haunted house among young lookers who had gathered after the arrival of police. "Oh, Nancy, thank goodness you're all right," Nancy exclaimed and gave her a hug of relief. "I was so worried." "Never mind," Nancy reassured her with a smile. "I just see I'm okay. But what about Fingers Malone? Didn't you follow him?" Bess looked puzzled. "Well, of course not. He never came out. Isn't he under arrest?" And that's the end of that chapter. See you later.